Doctor, Doctor, Doctor by Salvatore Calandra of Strathfield 2135. Narrated by David Tredinnick. In 1960, we had just got married. My wife and I moved into a small bungalow in Homebush. Homebush, a quaint village in inner West Sydney, had several schools and a railway station. All in all, Homebush offered everything we needed, but we still required the services of a good family doctor. On inquiring of the locals, most of them directed us to the surgery of Dr. Zoran Komorowski, GP. On the ground level of a Federation dwelling, the doctor had a small surgery. Upstairs, he resided with his wife. In the surgery foyer, in reception, sat a young female who asked if I wished to see the doctor. I explained that we were new in the area and that we would require the services of a good family doctor. The young lady smiled and advised that the surgery was closing for lunch. If I cared to join her for a sandwich and coffee, she would recite a brief history of the good doctor. In a tiny kitchen with coffee and sandwich, the girl began her story. Zoran Alexander Komorowski was born a White Russian. He and his family disliked the communists. In the 1917 revolution, Zoran, at 24, was a medical student. In 1918, he gained his medical degree as a doctor. Conditions in Russia were terrifying. Food and heating became scarce. People disappeared, never to be seen again. In 1919, in fear for their lives, the Komorowski family fled to Germany. The Germans had strict rules and would not recognize Zoran's Russian degree, even though he was fluent in German. Zoran had no choice but to enter a local university for 3 years and restudy medicine. For the next 12 years, Zoran Komorowski practiced medicine. He continued his studies and became a renowned physician specialist. He married Olga, a German nurse, and they raised 2 children. All was well. However, by 1936, the political winds in Germany had changed, and by 1938, Hitler and his party were beating the drums of war. After his experience in Russia, and again fearing for their lives, Zoran and his family left Germany and fled to England. The English Medical Board told Zoran that his Russian and German medical degrees would not be accepted. For the duration of the war, Zoran was employed as a medic in London. Medical colleagues soon acknowledged his abilities, and some quietly consulted him as a physician. In 1948, after the war, the English government promoted and assisted people to immigrate to other countries. Zoran Komorowski, sick and tired of revolutions, war and devastation, decided to move his family to a sunny and more peaceful Australia. He was now fluent in Russian, German, and English. On his arrival in Sydney, Zoran took his 2 medical degrees to the Australian Medical Board and applied to be registered as a doctor, general practitioner. The board acknowledged the overseas degrees, but unfortunately their policy was that all doctors from other countries would have to do a 2-year revision course to bring them up to Australian standards. Although disappointed, Zoran could understand the logic, and so registered for the coming semester at a Sydney Medical University. But he still had to feed, house, and look after his family. An advertisement in the local paper landed him a job maintaining the gardens of a prominent businessman's estate. His children continued with their education, and his wife helped wherever possible. Zoran went to lectures at night. At work, being fastidious, he maintained and kept the estate as best he could. Some heavy days, drained and tired, he arranged several seats in the back row of the lecture room and slept. The lecturer noticed this but did not interfere, leaving the students to the fate of the final exams. One night, for reasons unbeknown, the lecturer decided to make an example of the sleeping student. Waking Zoran, the lecturer asked for his opinion on the subject being studied. Zoran asked the lecturer what page was being discussed. "Page 287, replied the lecturer. Zoran calmly repeated the text word for word, verbatim. The whole class was astounded, as was the lecturer, who demanded to know how was this possible. Zoran, smiling, told the class that the explanation was simple. He had written the book. The author's name appeared as Z.A. Komorowski. Zoran Alexander Komorowski. When the lecturer addressed the medical board and told them of Zoran's status, they quickly arranged for him to sit for a medical exam, which of course he passed with distinctions. The medical board promptly bestowed upon Zoran his medical degree, wishing him good luck and a position as lecturer, should he so wish. Back in the tiny kitchen, the young lady offered me another cup of coffee. I thanked her again for lunch, and such a fascinating history of the good doctor. I told her that I wished to make an appointment for the following Monday at 10 a.m. She took my particulars and told me that she was a medical student and only worked 2 days a week. Another receptionist would follow up on my details. Monday, at 10:15 a.m., I was ushered into the surgery. There, sitting in a large chair, was an elderly gentleman, diminutive in stature, with blonde, thinning hair and lively blue eyes. Next to his left hand on the desk, sitting upright at attention, was a small, creamy-coloured chihuahua, who was staring at me and assessing any possible danger. I looked around the room, and there on my right in gilded frames hung the 3 medical degrees: Russian, German, and Australian. I pointed to them, and could not help myself, said, "Doctor, doctor, doctor." The good doctor smiled, chuckled, and said, "I see that you have been talking to my granddaughter. As my dog Pepe has not barked, you must be a friendly fellow. Please sit. What can I do for you?" And so began a lifelong friendship between me and Dr. Zoran Alexander Komorowski. And Pepe, of course. The end.